Welcome to Secrets Unlocked. If you enjoy intimate confessions and forbidden stories, check the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe, settle in, and enjoy the story. Alexis Morgan stared at the woman in the bathroom mirror. Not bad for nearly 50, she thought. Not bad at all. Virtually no facial wrinkles and creamy skin made her look a good bit younger than she was. Her auburn hair was shoulder-length and turned up in a curl. Her startling green eyes looked slightly sad until she smiled. At this realization, she pursed her lips into the thin smile an old flame had once described as her Mona Lisa smile. Alexis applied a little more lipstick, brushed her hair, and gave one more approving glance into the mirror. Yes, she had to admit that she was a good-looking woman, and she hoped that Mr. Bill Stewart would find her attractive in person. Alexis held the grab bars on the bathroom vanity as she lowered herself into the sleek custom-made wheelchair she used around the house. Assisting each leg with her hands, she lifted her feet into the footrests. Alexis took a quick moment to inspect her new, dark red pedicure, the polish matching that on her long and elegant fingers. Bill appreciated nice feet, she knew, and she had not only described her feet to him, she had actually emailed a picture of them after one of her expensive pedicures. Alexis smiled in anticipation of showing her feet off in person tonight, the left one now sporting a silver ring on her second toe. The pretty redhead in the mobile chair reflected for a moment on the relationship built exclusively online over a full year. She and Bill would meet tonight in Boca Raton for the first time. He lived in New Orleans and was in town on business. She had only just told him in the last month about her disability, holding her breath as she typed the words. A freak fall down concrete stairs when she was 19 had left her nearly 60% paralyzed below the waist. Alexis could stand unassisted, and when she had to, take a few very labored steps unsupported. Otherwise, she required one of her wheelchairs or her crutches to get around. Alexis had been mortified at the prospect of alienating Bill, assuming he would be either furious or disappointed at her deception. Deception? Was it? She wasn't sure. She had never lied about it, she had just never brought it up. Bill had never asked any questions that would require a revelation either. She had just allowed him to assume that when she said, "I went shopping," she meant that she got there upright on 2 feet like anybody else. However, as their relationship intensified, Alexis realized that she could not hide her handicap any longer, and had taken the gamble that Bill would accept it. He had accepted it, and without any questions about why she chose to keep it from him. His reaction was the best possible under the circumstances, and Alexis found herself more drawn than ever to her Cyberman as a result. But he still had not seen her in person, and that would certainly be the acid test. Alexis was taken with Bill's pictures. He had been very dark-haired once, but the gray had taken over. The hair was conservative and gave him a certain distinction. He had a nice face and deep blue eyes. Alexis always focused on Bill's lips. He had told her once that he was teased as a child for his pronounced, thick lips, but she thought they looked handsome in his pictures and found herself hoping to be kissed by them. Alexis wheeled herself to her closet and picked up the pair of chic sandals purchased specifically for this night. She had selected them to give maximum exposure to her long toes. With just the suggestion of a heel, they were essentially expensive leather thongs, with leather ankle laces to make sure they stayed on. This was particularly important if she used her crutches. Alexis tied the ankle straps securely and backed her chair out of the closet. On the way to the garage, she checked her look in the full-length bedroom mirror. The muted orange dress looked great on her. The dress was calf-length, revealing legs with reasonably good muscle tone. That was exclusively the result of daily workouts on a motorized stationary bike, pumping her weakened limbs aggressively for her. Her tummy was flat and her upper body firm and strong from her other workout equipment. Yes, a damn fine-looking woman, she mused to herself before rolling rapidly through the house. As she passed her office, she grimaced at the realization of how far behind she was in producing the latest romance novel for her publisher. She was under contract and had been paid a handsome advance for a book to be completed by just 60 days from now. Alexis wasn't going to make the deadline for her next tale, she knew, and she would have to have her agent, Bobby, sweet-talk the publisher into an extension. Alexis had published 10 books in hardback, 7 of which were now released in paperback as well. A picture of her adorned the back of every one, standing by a pasture fence and stroking the nose of a beautiful black mare. She was wearing denim and boots, and her reading public had no idea of the wheelchair that had been just outside of the camera's frame. Bill had promised to never reveal to anyone that Alexis was disabled since she did not wish her reading public to know. She thought of one other thing. Alexis Morgan was actually her publishing pseudonym, and she had maintained that identity with Bill. He did not know her real name, although it probably made no sense to keep it from him now. She would tell him tonight. By the kitchen entrance to the garage, a pair of black aluminum forearm crutches stood, ready for Alexis' use in moving from the house to her car. She pushed herself up from the chair, slid her arms into cuffs of the crutches, and leaned her weight onto the hand grips. Opening the door and leaving her wheelchair behind, Alexis began to move toward her white Lexus. Her walk was deliberate and slow. The weak nerve impulses to her legs created drop-foot paralysis, which meant that her toes simply fell toward the ground when she raised each foot. Alexis lifted her legs in an exaggerated manner from the knee to keep her toes from dragging the ground. The result was floppy feet, and she knew that she looked quite odd as she moved on her crutches. She had been mistaken for a polio victim more than once because of it. She owned short leg braces which controlled the drop foot, and she had used them as a younger woman, but virtually never did any more. For the last 20 years or so, she had been able to utilize a wheelchair in public almost all the time. The Americans with Disabilities Act had mandated wheelchair access to public buildings, and most sidewalks now had curb cuts. In fact, accessibility was so good for wheelchair users, these days crutches had been abandoned by most disabled people altogether. Alexis used hers only to move from house to car and back, having a second wheelchair behind the driver's seat of the Lexus. She did make sure the forearms went with her in the car, just in case there was some place without adequate access for her chair. Still, she had come to dread being seen on them in public. Alexis stashed the crutches in the back seat. Then, slowly and with concentrated effort, she willed her legs to move her to the car's forward door and into the driver's seat. She started the car and began her 20-minute drive downtown to meet Bill. Alexis was grateful that she did not need hand controls for her car. She drove with one foot on the gas and one on the brake, managing the pedals adequately in this way. Soon enough she saw La Ville Maison, the French restaurant that was a 25-year fixture in Boca, with an intimate and romantic atmosphere. It was an appropriate place for this 1 year later first date. Alexis turned the car into the valet parking area and watched as a fresh-faced young attendant jogged to her. By the time he arrived, she had the door open and had pulled herself to a standing position. "I have a wheelchair in the back seat. Would you pull it out for me?" she asked sweetly. The valet looked at her a little uncertainly, then opened the back door to discover her chair. He managed to get it out and open for her. She dropped into it, again assisting her feet onto their supports. Alexis began wheeling toward the restaurant entrance as the valet quickly removed her car to an adjacent lot. "Yes, he's here," said the blonde hostess. "Follow me." She said this without apparent regard for Alexis' chair and began walking into the dining area rather quickly. Alexis vigorously wheeled ahead to keep up. Then she spotted Bill. Sitting at a secluded corner table, he looked out at her as she approached and smiled, showing he was as excited as she. The hostess led Alexis to the table where Bill was now standing. On the table in front of Bill was a single red rose. Alexis caught her breath. Once there, the blonde removed one of the 4 chairs and watched while Alexis maneuvered her wheelchair into position across from Bill. She left them hurriedly to greet another couple that had just arrived. "And we finally meet," said Bill as he handed Alexis the rose. He took her right hand and held it gently. "So, how are you?" Alexis almost sighed. "It's amazing that we've known each other all this time and are just now getting together in person. I've dreamed of this moment for a very long time." She found herself strangely calm after the utter anxiety that anticipating this meeting had brought. "I'm fine now," he returned quietly. The suspense has been killing me, but you are as gorgeous as your pictures and then some. I'm feeling very fantastic right now. Me too. Are you sure you're not upset or disappointed that I didn't tell you about my being disabled sooner? I was sure that would be the end of our relationship. Alexis heard a slight quiver in her own voice as she said this. No, not at all. Beauty and intelligence transcend everything else in my book, but I am curious about it. When you're comfortable telling me, I want to understand everything about your physical situation. There's something else I need to share with you, Bill. I don't know if you wondered, but Alexis Morgan isn't my real name. It's actually Karen Gastineau. The funny thing is, I've been called Alexis so long that's the name I actually prefer these days. Only my family and a few old friends ever call me Karen anymore, but I wanted you to know. And, yes, of course, I'll explain my disability, and anything else you want to know about me, too. For the next half hour, Alexis poured out her life history to Bill, allowing him into the inner sanctum of her emotions regarding her handicap. She talked about her deep-seated insecurity as a younger woman. She shared how she had made peace with herself at the age of 38, upon realizing that she had then been crippled half her life. Bill saw a woman who was now cheerful and confident of her ability to function effectively in spite of her physical limitations. The more he got to know Alexis, the more he knew he wanted to be with her. Dinner went wonderfully in Alexis' view. Bill was a true gentleman, rising for Alexis when she excused herself to the ladies' room. He was also a good listener, focusing on her carefully as she revealed her life to him. She tried to make sure she did the same, and asked Bill questions that would allow him to unlock any inhibitions and share everything with her as well. Yet Alexis felt somehow that Bill was not being as forthcoming as she wondered what he might be holding back. The restaurant was nearly empty 2.5 hours later as they lingered over after-dinner liqueurs. Bill suggested another round of drinks at his hotel, a 5-star located just blocks away. Alexis quickly agreed, by now mesmerized by Bill's manners and charm. Bill excused himself to the men's room and discreetly handled the check in the ensuing time. Alexis learned to her delight. She then swiveled her chair and headed for the door with Bill walking behind her. At the valet stand outside, they handed their claim checks to the captain and waited for their cars to be fetched. Bill had gently taken Alexis' hand. Alexis dreaded having Bill see the awkwardness she would display getting into her car. Her Lexus pulled up first, and she fumbled for a tip for the valet. "No," said Bill simply, as he pushed a couple of bills into the young man's hand. As if he anticipated Alexis' anxiety, he accompanied her to the car and then asked, "Can I help?" This was the question that every disabled person hated for the most part, but Alexis decided this time to take advantage of the offer. "You can, in fact." She locked the wheels of her chair and said, "Give me your hands." Bill obliged, and Alexis used his arms to pull herself up from the chair. She tried to be as smooth and casual as possible, but she knew that Bill saw the effort involved. Alexis stood still and instructed Bill on how to fold her chair and place it behind the driver's seat. As he stowed the chair, Bill saw Alexis' black crutches on the seat. "You amaze me. You didn't mention that you can stand on your own, and I see your crutches in the car. Do you use those as well?" Alexis briefly explained her limited mobility and preference for her wheelchair. Crutches were for emergencies only, she emphasized, leaving little doubt in Bill's mind that she did not like to be seen with them. She then asked Bill for his arm, which she grasped and leaned on as she took the short steps to get in the car. Bill could see how she lifted each foot and placed it down on the pavement in turn. He helped her into the driver's seat and closed the door. "I'll see you at the hotel in a minute," he said, as he moved toward his own rented BMW, now waiting. Once at the hotel, the two went to the lobby bar and ordered another round of aperitifs. Alexis found herself quite taken with Bill and realized that if he asked her to his room, she would most definitely go. After a half hour of talking, he found the opportunity to ask, "Alexis, I know this is our first meeting, but I feel like I've known you for a very long time. It would please me greatly if you would stay with me tonight." "I'd like that, Bill, and I agree. I feel like we've cheated ourselves by not meeting until tonight. There is nothing that would make me happier right now than to spend the night with you. Are you ready now?" At that, Bill motioned for the check and rose from his seat, reassuring Alexis that he was as attracted to her as she was to him. She rolled herself toward the elevators while Bill signed the bar tab. When he caught up to her, he walked at her side and placed his hand on her shoulder. The two got on the elevator, Alexis expertly backing herself in order to face the doors. The ride to the second floor was brief, and two exited to make their way to room 256. To Alexis' amazement, she noted that there was a small wheelchair insignia on the door, indicating that the room was handicapped accessible. "You were assuming a lot," she said to him slyly. "Wasn't assuming a thing. If you had declined my offer, the room would have been fine for me. But on the chance that you might say yes, I decided to ask for a room that would be appropriate for us both." Alexis realized that Bill had just done one of the most thoughtful things anyone ever had for her, and she adored him for it. This is quite a guy, she thought to herself. Once in the room, Bill went to the phone and dialed room service. "A bottle of Dom Perignon, iced, please," Alexis heard him say, "and 2 crystal glasses." He hung up and faced her. "You are a magnificent woman, Alexis." Bill said this definitively, leaving little doubt in Alexis' mind that he was enthralled with her. "And you, my dear, are quite the gentleman," she returned, reaching up to stroke his cheek. Bill bent low over her and gently kissed her, a gesture full of warmth and connection that left no doubt about their mutual attraction. Without warning, Bill reached down and deftly lifted Alexis from the wheelchair and moved her to the bed, where she lay back on the covers, completely captivated by the intimacy growing between them. Then Bill did something Alexis was not expecting. Feeling the tension build? Thousands of more private stories are waiting in my exclusive archive. The link is in the channel description. He untied the leather straps of her sandals and gently removed the shoes. He held her feet up by the ankles and made a mock show of examining them. "I have to tell you that I like the picture you sent me, but it does not do justice to these exceptionally gorgeous feet of yours. The toe ring is a beautiful touch. May I do more than admire them?" "You may, I would love that," Alexis giggled uncertainly. She wanted him more than she had ever wanted any man, deeply moved by his attention and appreciation of her. Bill focused entirely on her feet, showing a unique and dedicated fascination with them that amazed Alexis, as no one had ever paid such attention to her feet before. She closed her eyes and became lost in the moment, finding a surprising sense of comfort and pleasure in how completely appreciated she felt. Every man should have a foot fetish, she thought to herself with amusement. Suddenly, Bill looked deeply into her eyes, making it clear that his affection and desire for her were absolute. At that moment, a knock came at the door and a voice in the hall said, "Room service." "Damn, what timing," chuckled Bill. He took a deep breath and moved toward the door. The dom rolled into the room in front of a cheerful young bellman who immediately surveyed the situation and slyly grinned at Bill. "Your champagne, sir. I hope everything is to your satisfaction. May I pour it for you?" "No, thanks." Bill smiled at this and tipped the youth generously, shooing him out the door as quickly as possible. Once the door was closed, Bill returned to the cart and opened the champagne, pouring 2 glasses carefully. He took one to Alexis, who by now was sitting up on the bed, finding herself desiring Bill in every way. She momentarily chastised herself for being so anxious, then decided to allow herself the full pleasure of the moment. "A toast," Bill said simply, "to a night exceeding all expectation." Bill put his glass down and sat on the bed next to Alexis. "Now where were we?" he whispered. "I'm not sure," Alexis cooed. "Alexis, I want you, perhaps more than I have wanted any woman," he said with a determination that told Alexis it was genuine. In that moment, the distance between them disappeared completely as they spent the night together. Afterward, he moved beside her and she lay in his arms. Alexis was the first to speak. "I am so happy right now. I can't even tell you how I feel. It is so good to be with a man who knows how to make love to a woman so wonderfully. You're the kind of guy I write about all the time. I didn't know there were actually any of you out there." She and Bill both smiled at this. And I want to say that I am really happy that you accepted me just the way I am without any hesitation. Many men would have been less enthusiastic about lovemaking to a woman with a disability. Thank you for that. You make me feel like a teenager again, Bill quipped to Alexis. Judging by your performance tonight, you must have been one hell of a stud muffin teen boy, returned Alexis without hesitation. Did all of your girlfriends get their toes sucked? Bill mused, no, only the ones with cute feet. They both laughed. Bill got up and, without a word, retrieved 2 terracloth bathrobes from the closet. He helped Alexis into one and donned the other himself. Bill sat on the side of the bed and looked intently at Alexis. You are the most exciting woman I have ever met. I couldn't do this with anyone else. You are very, very special, Alexis. I mean that. Tonight was one of the most amazing nights ever for me, too, and it's not over. Well, that's exciting to think about, but right now, I need to relax for a little bit. Alexis playfully returned as she pushed herself to a sitting position and fluffed a pillow behind her. I do have a question. Anything, said Bill. Well, it's just that I have the feeling that there's something you're not telling me. It's hard to explain, but you just seem to be holding something back. Maybe I'm crazy, but it feels that way to me anyway. Bill paused and gave Alexis an odd look. She realized immediately that her instincts had been right. She waited with nervous anticipation for his reply. Okay, Bill began hesitantly. There is something I should tell you, and it's something that you may not like at all, something I truly hope won't spoil this perfect night. Nothing could, I promise. I knew that Alexis Morgan wasn't your real name, and I knew that you are Karen Gastineau before we ever started to correspond online. I pursued you from the beginning because I discovered an article well over a year ago about you. What about me? Alexis asked nervously. About the fact that you are an accomplished romance novel writer and that you are disabled. It was your disability that intrigued me initially. So, I joined your online fan club and began our relationship. Alexis knew he was referring to the one and only thing ever written about her that revealed her handicap. She had been furious when that article was published. Why would my disability intrigue you? There was a long pause and Bill looked very uncomfortable. Because I am a devotee, Alexis. Do you know what that is? Bill now displayed tiny beads of perspiration on his forehead. He waited as Alexis digested this new information. Yes, I do. Alexis had spent time curiously exploring the myriad websites hosted by men with an attraction to disabled women. They called themselves devotees, and were seemingly obsessed with women crippled by anything from amputation to spina bifida to polio. Okay, well, in fact, I know a little bit about it because I have been kind of fascinated with your, community, myself. Part of me is put off because I don't like the idea that disabled women are some kind of object. Since I'm a writer, I have made it a point to read a lot of the stories that have been published about men who want women like me. A lot of them write as if nothing matters to them except the wheelchairs or crutches and braces. And I have to say, it does make me a little uncertain about how to feel about tonight. Have you been so engaging because you are drawn to my wheelchair and the fact that I can't walk worth a damn? Or was what we both experienced more than that? Much more, Alexis. I absolutely swear it. Honestly, if we had just met and done this, I might have been caught up in the moment. But we had a year to get to know everything about each other apart from your disability, because you didn't know I knew. And I found myself more and more captured with your intelligence and wit and personality. I do have to admit, I find it fascinating that there are men who find women like me, well, attractive. It's just kind of weird for me to think about, but that doesn't mean I don't like it on a certain level. Bill summoned his courage. There's one more aspect of my own devotee desires that you should know, and it may actually set your mind at ease a little. I actually find women on crutches especially exciting. Forearm crutches are my favorite, and I was thrilled when I saw yours in the car. But I picked up loud and clear that you don't like to use them, and I frankly don't care, because it's you I want. And that's the truth. Alexis paused. I hate being seen on my crutches because I think I look like a complete klutz. Some kids in college used to call me Flopsy, behind my back because of the way I move my legs and feet. It still hurts to think about sometimes, but I don't think I'd mind using them around you if you'd find that exciting. I would love to see you on those black forearm crutches, Alexis. I can't think of anything more sexy, I can tell you. But that said, I only want you to do what is comfortable for you. I promise you, my darling, if you go get them from the car for me, I'll use them for the rest of the time we have together. It would be my pleasure, because, you know what? Suddenly I'm not worried what anybody else thinks. Alexis found the anxiety over Bill's revelation falling away and feeling even more attracted to him. You mentioned that you have read some stories on the internet. Have you run into any by someone named Marty Egan? As a matter of fact, yes, and a few from others too. There's one very talented writer named Ms. Gimpley. But the Marty Egan stories are all very revealing about the devotee phenomenon. Why do you ask? Because I'm Marty Egan. Bill said this simply and with some pride, all the while watching Alexis' face for any sign of judgment. There was a long silence between them as Alexis' eyes focused intently on Bill. She spoke hesitantly. Bill, Marty, I have admired your writing. I honestly did feel when I was reading your stories that you were a man who showed not only attraction to disabled women, but respect for them as well. And I appreciated that a lot. Bill had been sitting on the side of the bed as they talked. Alexis grinned mischievously. Yes, you are Marty. He makes it pretty clear in his stories that he likes feet a whole lot too. "'Tis I, Marty Egan, at your service," Bill quipped, relieved at her response. Bill lay down next to Alexis again and kissed her gently on the lips. Alexis, I hope that tonight is just the first of many wonderful evenings to come. You are the most sexy and amazing woman that I have ever met. Alexis sighed deeply and relaxed into his arms, feeling as if she had finally met the knight in shining armor she had refused to believe existed. They remained together, completely lost in each other's company as the night continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. More intimate confessions are waiting in the private archive linked in the description. Subscribe for the next story.